really, I just want to try to maximize what I think my potential is. And that's in every category of the game. So I think that's more of what I'm trying to do is become the best I can mentally, the best driver, ball striker I can, the best putter and chipper I can, the best person on and off the golf course I can. And if I can do and be in the best shape I can, if I can do all that, hopefully the results take care of themselves. And I think that's more satisfying than maybe trying to be number one or two or whatever in the world, because once you get there, then what? And so I'm trying to just become the best myself, and whatever that leads to, then that would be satisfying.
Wyndham is one of the most fascinating characters in golf right now. He was in his late 20s before he really started peaking, but then he's had this meteoric rise from outside the top 300 in the world. Now he's inside the top 5. So I'm interested to see what he thinks happened. Wyndham, I want to talk about your breakthrough, specifically what changed. Like, what was the difference between the guy who was, outside the world top 300 in 2022 and then was winning the biggest tournaments in the world in 2023? That's kind of a broad question, but like, what happened?
I would say it's like three main things happened. I switched club manufacturers in the end of 2021, and I switched to Titleist, and that change in itself, my stats got significantly better, my ball striking got better. And then in that, I also went from working with the swing coach and always having him at a tournament and working with him on an off week to nobody and owning my own golf game. And so I started playing really good golf in 2022, at least consistent golf. I was seeing a lot of good shots, and I could kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit. The last ingredient was the mental game. Working on that, hired somebody, really made it a big deal to work on it. And I think all those combined was the recipe that kind of made me have the year that I did last year and the year that I'm having currently.
All right, that's an awesome breakdown. I kind of want to go into each of those just a tiny bit more. With the club change, what did you see that was different? Like tighter dispersion, more distance? It
was actually everything. I mean, really, dispersion off the tee. I had the distance. I've always had the distance, but I was not accurate, and my misses were off the planet. And I didn't quite understand why that was. And come to find out, a lot of it was the club. And then the irons, I just wasn't as consistent as I needed to be. And a lot of that was the clubs. I was, instead of spinning a 7-iron at the desired spin rate that I was spinning it way less. And so the ball would fluctuate 10 to 13 yard difference. And on tour, it needs to be within a yard or two. And so I thought shots that would be perfect and look good went to 40 feet, or they would come up short, or they'd come up short in the bunker plugged, and I'd make bogeys, and I did nothing wrong. And just switching the clubs in itself, I got significantly better.
What is it about coaching yourself that works? Because I feel like we've seen this with a few different people. Something about taking ownership of your swing and your game can have a benefit. Why is that?
I think it's not for everybody, but I think some guys rely too much on someone to tell them what to do. And in that, I think then they don't even know what to do. So, they have a bad day ball striking, and I'm mainly talking about me. I'd have a bad day ball striking, and I'd instantly go to the swing coach and say, well, what do we do? Instead of saying, hey, I think this was happening, I tried this and it got better, or whatever it is, I just go to them, they give me something to do, and maybe it is good on the range, but a lot of times it wasn't then good on the golf course, and I couldn't take it to the course. And as I've owned it myself, I will be at home and I'll be like, okay, it doesn't feel good. I get it to where it feels pretty good on the range. Then I go on the course and I go, oh, yep, that doesn't work on the course. And so then when I'm on the course, I find something that feels good, go back to the range, and I'm finding what actually works in competition and when I'm on the course. And in doing that, you learn so much about your golf swing. And so when you do get into competition, and let's say you aren't hitting the shots you want, I can fix it on the fly, or I can go to a go-to shot and still go and shoot good numbers and still have good finishes. Where before it was just everything's off. I couldn't play golf. I'd make bogeys. I'd hit terrible shots, and you finish 50th or miss the cut. Versus now, I've had weeks where I'm not hitting it good, and I still have a chance. I've won a tournament where I didn't hit it good, and a couple tournaments actually. And then I've had top finishes where it was like I'm not hitting on all cylinders, but I'm playing golf, and that's what is huge is you start playing golf instead of golf swing.
It's funny. I think athletes in golf, but also in pretty much any sport, like you see people with certain attitudes where you can blame external factors, and that seems like that could be one of, I've got a stupid golf coach. What did he tell me that for? Is there an element of that too, where it's like you can't blame anyone but yourself, so you have to answer for all of it?
Yeah, there's definitely the ownership part's huge, and when it is bad, it's on me. I do think there's going to be a time when I'm going to have to see somebody with my swing, to where I just get advice. But I've kind of done it with everything. I don't think I'll ever have a full-time coach in any facet of my game where they're on full retainer and I'm so reliant on them.
Mm.
I'll go work with a putting coach. I'll go work with a short game guy. I'll go work with a swing guy. But I'll take what I learn and then I'll go make it my own.
Yeah, these are like definitely brilliant people that know.
100%. And they're fantastic in what they do, and they've helped tons of people. It's just more of, for me, it's best if I take that and then I own it and then I make it my own and run with it. Because then when I get under pressure, I know it works and I feel like I trust that it works because I did it myself. And so then it leads into the mental game. It's kind of the same thing. I've worked with other mental coaches. It wasn't like I neglected that part my whole life. I've worked with people. It's just I found someone that really connected with me and the tools that we've come up with that have really helped me in competition. It's definitely all finding what works best for each individual person. But for me right now, it's kind of a lot of owning it myself and learning it myself. And it's taken me a long time to do that. But now that I've learned that, I feel like now I'm able to play the golf that I want.
Specifically, I'm curious what that process kind of looks like. Like say you're starting to feel uncomfortable over 4-foot putts. I personally feel uncomfortable over 4-foot putts. How do you then how do you use the tools in your toolbox to help yourself then in competition under pressure, be like, I'm going to step up and hit that pressure putt?
Typically if you're missing 4-foot putts, it's a little bit more mechanical and mental than anything. So it'd be, okay, clearly you're not starting on line because 4-footers is all about line than it is more the read.
Mm-hmm.
So starting on line. So I'd first look at that. And then if you're still having troubles, then you look at the mental part, or I would do the combination of the two. So, if you miss a 4-footer, like, okay, well, what's off? You figure that out. And then going into the next one, I'm thinking of all the times I've made 4-footers and I'm thinking I'm going to make it. I'm going to hit a good putt. This is going in the hole. And I think of all the positive stuff. And then you do it and then you build off that and go, in your mind, you're like, let's go. And so then the next time you have one, you go, I just made one. I'm going to make another one. And so instead of thinking about the one you missed, you're constantly thinking about the ones that you've made. And so those two things together, I think, helps you get out of that little rut.
Was there a different type of pressure that came after the U.S. Open to validate what you had done now that you'd won a major championship?
I mean, I didn't play that many tournaments afterwards. I played Travelers, Scottish, British, and then the playoffs. And granted, I made all the cuts in all of those. It wasn't the best golf by any means. But kind of when I got out of that, maybe a little bit of the hangover from the U.S. Open, I finished third at the Tour Championship.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of like, okay, there, I just validated that it wasn't a fluke. I finished third in the FedEx, third in that tournament. I played great, end to an amazing year. And so that kind of got me to where I was like, okay, that's kind of over. And then I went into the off season and and then I just said, all right, let's new chapter, start over, line in the sand, and let's the new year. Last year was great, but new year, and so it hasn't really affected me now. Maybe for a couple of tournaments it did, but now it's now I didn't think about it.
I mean, and you've done a bunch of validating now, winning at Pebble, a couple more runner-ups at big time events. Are you surprised at all by how good you've gotten? Like, were there times a few years ago where you're like, yeah, I mean, maybe my ceiling's 50th best player in the world, and now it feels different?
No, I'm not surprised. Not at all. I thought this, like I said, I thought maybe it would happen earlier, and I've always known this has been there because, I'm the one hitting the shots in practice when no one's looking, and I'm playing, and I see what I can do, and I'm playing in off weeks against top players, and I'm beating them, and I'm looking at their game and looking at my game and going, there's no difference between us. And if anything, I think my game's better. This is all internal thinking.
Yeah.
And so when it wasn't happening on the golf course, was so frustrating. That was probably the worst thing about my first 4 years on tour, was the fact that I wasn't playing to what I thought my potential was. And that just ate at me more than anything. And so now that I feel like I'm starting to play towards my potential, it's almost like that's what I expected the whole time. So, it's been really nice, and it's amazing feeling, but I feel like my work's not done. I got a lot more good golf in me, and I hope I continue to play great golf, and I'm looking forward to the day when I really surprise myself and maybe play better golf than I thought I ever could.
I like that. Well, yeah, what is the ceiling? Like, what are your expectations?
Really, I just want to try to maximize what I think my potential is, and that's in every category of the game. So I think that's more of what I'm trying to do, is become the best I can mentally, the best driver, ball striker I can, the best putter and chipper I can, the best person on and off the golf course I can. And if I can do and be in the best shape I can, if I can do all that, hopefully the results take care of themselves. And I think that's more satisfying than maybe trying to be number one or two or whatever in the world, because once you get there, then what? And so I'm trying to just become the best myself, and whatever that leads to, then that would be satisfying.
You say it's mostly internal, knowing that you have the shots, knowing that your game stacks up, knowing that maybe it's better than a lot of these guys. Do you ever tell them? You ever make it external?
No, I mean, I like to chirp and I like to talk trash, but I would never want to come off as like arrogant in any way, but it's more of an internal thing. Like, I'll play with guys, and I really try to let my game do the talking, and so I'm sure they always saw it, and a lot of guys would say that. I mean, a lot of players would say, man, once you get out of your own way, you're going to be really, really good.
Really?
And yeah, multiple players have said that. And that is a compliment, but also hit me right in the heart, where I was like, well, what am I doing that's not getting me there? So that would happen. And then now it's more of, I just let the game do the talking, and internally I'm always, trying to build myself up. But no, I never tell anyone like, hey, I'm better than you or anything like that.
What's the next thing? Like, if you had to critique yourself right now, you're like, well, this is holding me back still. Not that you have like that far to go, but
there's a couple things. I think consistency is probably the biggest thing. I look at Scotty Scheffler, who's kind of the barometer right now of where he's the pinnacle of where you want to be right now, number one player in the world. And he's just so consistent. He's not winning every week, but he is constantly in contention or finishing top 10, or his bad weeks are 15th. And right now, some of my bad weeks are 30th or 40th. And so consistency in all parts of my game is probably the one thing that I really want to work on. Because in golf, you don't win that much, right? So it's more of just always being on the front page, first two pages of the leaderboard, and then obviously sprinkling in some wins. So if I can get more consistent, that's kind of one of my goals this year and moving forward. And I think that ultimately will help me get to where I want to be.
Last thing, which is more important, to work smarter or work harder?
It's smarter now. I used to work harder, where I would maybe work longer, and I felt like I was working harder than anyone, but I wasn't getting the results. And so now I'm working a lot smarter. I know my game so much better, so I know what I need to work on in off weeks. I know what I need to work on mentally, and so I tackle those areas. And sometimes it's not as much work as maybe I used to, where I'd be out there for 8, 9, 10 hours in a day, grinding on everything, thinking I had to have everything tidied up. Versus now I know, okay, for this upcoming event I need this, or last event I was doing this, so let's improve that. Mentally, I did this in a couple areas, and so I kind of work on all those things. So when I go to the next event, I sharpen those areas, and so yeah, definitely smarter.
Love it. Yeah. All right, we'll try to apply some of the same. Thanks, Wyndham.
Yep, thank you.